The world believes the government is simply closed. But what if the shutdown is not just about politics or budgets? What if it is the moment everything shifts? The silence is not emptiness, it is movement. Behind locked doors and dark screens, a quiet operation continues. The stage lights are off, but the actors remain in place. The ones who built the old world are waiting. The ones building the new one have already begun. 40 days of stillness. No data, no signals, no headlines that mean anything. But the truth is that systems like this are not turned off by accident. They are paused for recalibration. When governments shut down, the markets hold their breath. When the markets hold their breath, the real players move. This is where the next chapter begins. The public sees a shutdown. The insiders see a reset. While citizens wait for paychecks and programs, digital architects test a different kind of structure. It is not written in laws. It is written in code. While Washington argues over funding, global settlement networks root around the chaos. Cross-border corridors whisper with activity. The new financial order is not being built on Capitol Hill. It is being built across ledgers. In 2025, the old economy has hit a wall. The United States Treasury is locked. Agencies are quiet. The flow of information has stopped. But somewhere deep in the digital undercurrent, value keeps moving. Invisible, instant, borderless. A bridge asset that never sleeps connects banks that do not even realize they are already part of the experiment. That bridge is not Bitcoin. It is not Ethereum. It is the hidden player. The silent current that powers the new financial bloodstream. It is XRP. The longer the government stays frozen, the clearer the message becomes. The old structure was never meant to survive this transition. What we are watching is not a failure of politics. It is a necessary silence before the next sound. Every empire that shifts from one system to another needs a pause. This is that pause. And when the noise returns, the money will not flow the same way. It will move through rails invisible to the crowd but already installed under their feet. As news channels debate deadlines, as politicians perform outrage, the real engineers are aligning systems. The ISO codes, the liquidity corridors, the tokenized settlements. The shutdown is only a surface illusion. The reset happens underneath. The bridge is already built, waiting for permission to activate. The old guard cannot stop it. They can only delay the moment the world realizes what has changed. The new system does not need permission. It only needs patience. And in this silence, XRP listens. It moves quietly between exchanges, banks, and test corridors. While governments fight to restart their machines, the Internet of Value has already gone live. The hidden players are no longer preparing, they are executing. And the greatest transition in financial history is happening while the world believes nothing is happening at all. When the government wakes, it will discover that the system it thought it controlled has already evolved. A reset without announcement, a bridge without borders, and a currency built not to rule the world but to connect it. This is where the story begins. The shutdown is not the end. It is the silence before the signal. And the signal carries the name XRP. Part 1. The Freeze. The freeze began with a vote that never came. A government, too, divided to fund itself. A system that prided itself on power suddenly powerless. On the surface, it looked like politics. But deep beneath the noise, something older was breaking apart. The financial heart of the old world slowed to a crawl. Offices dark. Reports paused. Workers sent home. No numbers, no guidance, no direction. A silence that felt like chaos, but to some it sounded like opportunity. When a system stops producing data, those who depend on it lose sight. Traders cannot see what to trade. Banks cannot see what to lend. Governments cannot see what to control. But the ones who built systems designed to operate without permission, they see everything. The old rails require bureaucracy. The new rails require connection. When bureaucracy freezes, connection becomes the only movement left, and that movement belongs to XRP. For 40 days, the Treasury held its breath. Billions locked behind digital vaults. Liquidity dried up in traditional markets. Stock indices jittered. Bitcoin slid sideways. Ethereum held still. But deep within settlement corridors, small bursts of traffic continued to flow, unseen by the public, unreported by media. It was the quiet hum of systems that never needed government funding to operate. Liquidity hubs testing cross-border transfers. RippleNet partners still processing settlements. stronghold nodes linking stellar rails with ISO messaging protocols. Every corridor that stayed online became proof that the future did not rely on Washington. The freeze revealed a truth too large for headlines. Power does not disappear, it shifts. Every time the traditional structure stalls, the decentralized one grows stronger. Every shutdown becomes a transfer of trust, from paper to protocol, from permission to performance, from the visible to the invisible. The SEC went dark, and the lawsuits faded from headlines. The CFTC went silent, and traders stopped waiting for clarity. Crypto legislation stalled, but innovation did not. Across Asia and Europe, digital settlement tests expanded. Central banks continued tokenization pilots. Every hour that the U.S. government stayed frozen, the rest of the world wrote new rules. Rules not drafted in Congress, but written in code. The freeze became a filter. It separated the loud from the effective. While the public argued about budgets, the hidden players measured efficiency. How fast can value move with no human approval? How secure can settlement be without physical oversight? Every test proved the same result. The rails worked. Even when the government stopped, the bridges did not collapse. They adapted, they rerouted, and the asset that made that possible did so without permission. Behind closed doors, quiet alliances formed. Banks that once ignored blockchain began making calls. Corporates that dismissed tokenization began to study it. The pause in government became a mirror, showing the fragility of the old order. How could a trillion-dollar system halt because politicians refused to sign a line? If that is what runs the world, then the world needs something better. That realization is what the hidden players wanted. Because only through failure does the crowd accept change. The freeze was never a glitch, it was a demonstration. To stop the machine and show which parts still move. And the part that moved fastest was not a political body or a central bank. It was a digital bridge designed for a future no one officially approved. It connected liquidity and silence. It processed value while governments argued. And it proved that the new system can function even when the old one collapses. The world called it a shutdown. The hidden players called it calibration. Every great reset begins with stillness. And in that stillness, the code took control. The next phase of the transformation had begun. When the lights come back on, nothing will look the same. Because the freeze was not the problem, it was the proof. The proof that a new financial world can operate without politics. The proof that the future has already arrived, and that its heartbeat pulses through something far quieter, faster, and unstoppable. That heartbeat is XRP. Part 2, The Silent Builders. While Washington argued over blame, the real architects moved in silence. The public waited for Congress to reopen offices, but the builders of the next system were already busy rewriting the foundation. They did not wear suits or appear on news networks. They did not make promises or hold debates. Their tools were not pens and papers, but algorithms and code. While the political world screamed of crisis, these builders heard only opportunity. For them, the shutdown was not a pause, it was an opening. Across hidden corridors of the financial web, engineers connected ledgers that were never meant to meet. Ripple's network expanded quietly, linking liquidity hubs across continents. Stronghold deepened its ties to Stellar's ISO 2022 ecosystem, shaping an unseen web of instant settlements. RLUSD, Ripple's coming stablecoin, moved closer to release, built not for traders but for institutions. And while the United States froze in political gridlock, foreign central banks took notes. They watched RippleNet move value across borders while their own wires waited for signatures. The future of settlement was happening. It just did not need headlines to prove it. The silent builders worked in layers. One layer developed interoperability between blockchains and fiat rails. Another created liquidity corridors connecting CBDC pilots to private networks. They were stitching together a new circulatory system for money. A system that would keep running even if the old heart stopped beating. Each connection was invisible to the untrained eye, but vital to the hidden architecture forming beneath the world's economy. To the builders, the shutdown was more than proof of concept. It was proof of necessity. When traditional markets froze, Ripple's engineers continued testing cross-border payments between banks that remained operational. The results were undeniable. Settlement times in seconds, fees reduced to almost nothing. Every successful test whispered a warning to the old system. You are no longer needed. Liquidity does not wait for legislation. Money does not wait for permission. The rails of the Internet of Value were already in motion, and the builders guiding them were no longer asking for approval. Inside corporate offices from Singapore to Zurich, executives began quiet calls. If the US could not guarantee financial stability, the next model had to. They looked to the same network that survived every previous crash. XRP, built to bridge, not to rule, created not to replace the dollar, but to make it obsolete as a dependency. While politicians played with temporary fixes, the builders of XRP's ecosystem perfected permanence. No party, no ideology, only math. The silent builders understood timing. They did not rush announcements. They let the world fall asleep before unveiling the new architecture. When the old structure collapses, humanity always looks for something to trust. The builders wanted that trust to flow through code, not politicians, through transparency, not hierarchy, through rails that connect everyone equally, from a banker in London to a farmer in Kenya. And every one of those rails points to the same bridge. XRP. This movement is not chaos, it is coordination. From the outside it looks scattered. Projects, testnets, small corridors of value. But together they form a pattern designed to survive collapse. A digital nervous system that can reroute around failure, restart after blackout, and heal when fractured. The builders are not reacting to crisis. They are preparing for the reset that must follow. Every nation that falls into political silence opens space for this network to grow. And every government that freezes strengthens the argument for decentralization. The world measures progress in laws and policies, but the hidden builders measure it in connections per second. Every new corridor, every new integration, every stablecoin launched on compliant rails pushes humanity further away from dependence on central authority. That was always the goal. Not rebellion, evolution, not chaos, continuity. A world that keeps moving even when its governments cannot. The silent builders know that history will not remember their names, but their code will remain long after the signatures fade. The shutdown showed the cracks in the old system. The builders filled those cracks with code, one connection at a time, and when the old world wakes, it will not even realize that the new one has already taken its place. This is how revolutions truly happen, not with explosions, but with upgrades. And the greatest upgrade in the history of money is already online. It speaks in the language of liquidity. It runs on XRP. Part 3. The Liquidity Squeeze. Liquidity is the lifeblood of every empire. When it flows, nations rise. When it stops, systems suffocate. The government shutdown created that suffocation. Treasury accounts locked, bonds suspended, pay frozen. Money that once moved freely through the arteries of the economy began to clot. It was a deliberate silence, a stress test for the global machine. And while the public saw only chaos, the architects behind the reset saw measurement. They were watching to see who could survive without oxygen. Traditional finance began to choke first. Banks relied on the steady rhythm of government payments to fuel loans and liquidity. Without them, they turned inward, hoarding reserves. Markets trembled. The dollar index wavered. Bitcoin stalled, unable to break new highs despite billions leaving traditional assets. Ethereum's gas fees fell silent. Speculators waited for a miracle that would not come, because the miracle they wanted was already running beneath their feet unseen. As the liquidity squeeze tightened, value began searching for a new home. It needed rails that did not depend on political approval or fiscal policy. And it found them in the ledgers built for moments like this. XRP's corridors remained open. Transactions continued moving between banks that could no longer trust their own governments. Private liquidity pools began routing through RippleNet, using XRP as the bridge when fiat channels froze. The code did what politics could not. It kept the world moving. For the hidden players, this was the proof they needed. The system could survive without permission. The asset they built for liquidity under stress was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Every second of uptime, every successful transaction was a quiet victory. Because when liquidity dries up, trust becomes the new currency. And trust had shifted from Washington to the network. The public will never be told that these transactions occurred. There will be no official report, no announcement from the Treasury. But the records are there, embedded into the blockchain itself. Movement when the rest of the world stood still. a living signal that the Internet of Value had already detached from the collapsing structure above it. Liquidity is power, and power always seeks flow. When the traditional valves close, it finds new channels. The squeeze forced that migration. Banks that once dismissed digital assets as speculation quietly began exploring them as survival tools. Because in a frozen system, efficiency is no longer a luxury. It is life support. Ripple knew this. Part 4. The institutional pivot. Every crisis reshapes the hierarchy of power. While the public focused on shutdowns and speeches, the institutions that truly moved the world began to change direction. The banks that once mocked blockchain held secret meetings. The funds that ignored XRP began requesting private demonstrations. The regulators that swore to resist digital assets quietly drafted frameworks for their approval. The pivot had begun, but it was not loud. It was careful, measured, and hidden in plain sight. Behind the polished doors of the old system, whispers grew louder. If the United States could no longer guarantee financial stability, who would? The liquidity squeeze had exposed too much weakness. Centralized systems could not withstand political paralysis. They needed technology that transcended jurisdiction. Not a new dollar, but a new design. And the only network that met every condition, speed, regulation, liquidity, and global reach, was the one that had been ignored for years. XRP. Institutional leaders do not chase trends. They follow control. And in the quiet of this freeze, they realized that control no longer came from policy. It came from interoperability. The power was no longer in printing money, but in directing its movement. Those who could bridge currencies, assets, and data across borders would inherit the throne. The institutions understood that the bridge already existed. They only had to step onto it. Ripple's corridors became the new conversation topic in closed boardrooms. What if settlements did not take 3 days? What if liquidity could be tapped instantly with guaranteed compliance? What if the entire financial stack could operate through a single standard, ISO 2022, connecting every bank, every central authority, and every blockchain? To the public, it sounded like fantasy. To the institutions, it sounded like survival. While politicians played the role of defenders of tradition, the institutions built escape plans. They invested in tokenization platforms. They explored stablecoins built for corporate settlement, RLUSD among them. They funded pilot programs for CBDCs that would quietly plug into Ripple's architecture once tested. And when journalists asked for comment, they smiled and denied everything. Because the pivot works best when no one sees it happening. The CFTC began signaling approval for retail spot crypto trading even without Congress. It was a message disguised as progress. If regulation cannot catch up, then adoption will lead it. Every agency knew it was only a matter of time before the rails of the old system gave way to the ones that actually worked. And the one network that met every technical and legal threshold was already live. Fast, regulated, scalable, ready for integration. That network was XRP. The institutions are not rebels. They do not seek revolutions. They prefer smooth transitions, quiet takeovers. This is how they work. Absorb the new until it becomes the standard. Ripple's technology did not overthrow the banks. It offered them survival. And when the lights of government dimmed, the banks reached for that light in silence. The same institutions that once ignored this bridge are now building their empires upon it. The pivot is invisible because it is not dramatic. It happens in contracts, not speeches. It happens in code updates, not headlines. It happens in a single decision made behind closed doors. To route liquidity through XRP instead of legacy rails. Once that decision is made, it becomes permanent. The new path is faster, cheaper, cleaner. There is no reason to go back. And that is how revolutions truly win. This pivot will not be announced. There will be no press release, no global event. The world will simply wake up one day to find that the system has changed. Transactions that once took days now clear in seconds. Fees that once drained billions vanish. And the bridge that made it possible will still be operating quietly without applause. The institutions will claim it was their design, but the truth is simpler. They did not build the bridge. They just walked across it. The hidden players never needed to convince the world. They only needed to make the alternative inevitable. And when the old structure collapsed under its own weight, the pivot became the only logical move. XRP did not conquer the system. The system surrendered to it. And when the government finally wakes from its shutdown, it will realize that control has already moved, silently, permanently, to the network that never stopped running. Part 5, The Awakening. When a system collapses, the people expect noise. They imagine alarms, chaos, breaking news. But that is not how real power shifts. The world changes in silence, through code, through signatures unseen, through systems that were installed years before anyone noticed. The awakening does not come with sound. It arrives with realization. The shutdown was never the end. It was the curtain drop before the next act. While the United States argued over its own paralysis, the global network aligned itself without it. Banks, regulators, and corporations across continents found common ground through technology, not treaties. And when the switch is flipped back on, the United States will awaken to a financial system it no longer controls. That is not destruction. It is transformation. The awakening begins when people notice that things simply work differently. Money moves faster. Cross-border transfers clear in seconds. Stablecoins settle trades once held hostage by clearing houses. Digital assets are suddenly compliant. Regulators no longer threaten innovation. They depend on it. And beneath it all, the bridge that carried this transition hums quietly. XRP, the liquidity experiments are over. Now comes integration. The ISO 2022 protocols that were optional become mandatory. Tokenization of assets is no longer theoretical. It becomes financial law. Real estate, carbon credits, securities, and commodities all begin living on-chain. And at the center of that tokenized world sits the same asset that survived every crash and every pause. The bridge asset that connects all value. It does not care about ideology, it only cares about flow. The more the system digitizes, the stronger it becomes. The awakening reveals the pattern hidden in every global shift. Old systems do not die by force. They fade when better ones make them unnecessary. The paper empire needed collapse to evolve into digital permanence. The shutdown gave it the silence it required. No resistance, no headlines, no panic. Just quiet replacement. As the new economy emerges, people will believe it happened overnight. They will think the reset was an emergency response, a necessary repair after failure. But those who have been watching know better. The hidden players built this bridge years ago. They knew the collapse was coming. They prepared for it, tested for it, and waited for the right global moment to activate. That moment is now. When the government reopens, it will step into a system that no longer answers to it. A world where liquidity routes itself, where settlements are trustless and instantaneous, where every currency, every asset, and every market speaks the same digital language. The language of value without borders. The language of XRP. The awakening is not a single event. It is a realization that has already begun. People are seeing through the illusion of control. They are learning that decentralization was not rebellion, it was rescue. The power that once belonged to governments now flows through networks. The currency that once served banks now serves humanity, and the technology that began as an experiment now operates as the backbone of a new global system. Soon the old institutions will announce their plans for modernization. They will reveal tokenized bonds, instant settlement networks, cross-border payment hubs. They will speak of innovation as if it is new. But the watchers will know that this is not invention. It is admission. They are joining the system that already won. The bridge has been active for years. Only now does the world see what it connects. When the awakening completes, there will be no celebration. There will be efficiency, there will be connection, and there will be control, not by nations, but by networks. The Internet of Value will no longer be theory, it will be reality. And every transaction, every digital signature, every movement of money will trace back to the same source. The same bridge that carried the world through silence. The same current that never stopped flowing. The same name that has echoed in every chapter of this transition. XRP. The silence before the signal. The world will remember the shutdown as a pause, but those who were paying attention know it was the moment everything changed. While governments argued, a new financial network took shape. While banks panicked, new rails came alive. While the markets froze, the Internet of Value began to move. History will call it coincidence, but the watchers will know it was orchestration. Because revolutions do not need violence when they have liquidity, and liquidity has found its final bridge. The silence was not failure, it was design. The stillness of the old system gave birth to motion in the new. When the lights return, the people will think the world is back to normal. But the normal they remember no longer exists. The money is smarter, the rails are invisible, the bridge is complete, and the heartbeat of the new global system no longer comes from Washington or Wall Street. It comes from a network that never sleeps, never stops, never waits for permission. The heartbeat comes from XRP. Every empire eventually hands its power to a new one. But this time, the empire is not a nation, it is a network. It does not conquer. It connects. It does not print money, it moves it. The hidden players did not destroy the system, they upgraded it. And in that upgrade, they replaced control with code. They replaced policy with protocol. They replaced borders with bridges. This is the dawn of the Internet of Value. The reset is not coming. It has already happened. The only question left is who saw it in time. The ones who understand liquidity know the truth. The world did not crash, it transformed. And the silent current guiding that transformation carries 3 letters: XRP. If you are listening now, you are early. If you can see the pattern, you are awake. And if you understand what comes next, you already live in the future. Because the world will soon discover that the financial revolution did not start with a law or a vote. It started in silence, and the silence was the signal. Stay awake, stay aware, stay ahead. This is LTL Productions, where truth meets technology and the future speaks in code. Subscribe now and join the ones who see before the world understands. Because when the lights turn back on, you will already be standing on the bridge. LTL Productions, live the life, learn the truth, lead the change, subscribe, share, spread the signal.